Hello everyone and welcome to another Little Nightmares theory video. I know it's been a while, hasn't it? But we are back with a Little Nightmares theory video, and today I really want to talk about this theory in particular as it's really interesting, and it involves all of the Little Nightmares games, so take this as your spoiler warning for Little Nightmares 1 and 2 and also Very Little Nightmares. And of course, if you enjoy this type of content and love Little Nightmares, make sure to hit that subscribe button, because whenever I get the chance I do make Little Nightmares content. And of course we're trying to hit 100,000 subscribers this year, so if you can help out with that would be great. But anyway, shameless self-promotion out of the way, let's actually get into this Little Nightmares theory video. So, you've more than likely gathered from the title that I'm going to be talking about Six's origin today, and where she may have come from, because I think I have found something out rather interesting. So of course, the first thing I want to talk about is where we, the player, first encounter Six, and I believe this is in Very Little Nightmares. Again, if you're not familiar with the timeline, in short, I believe the answer is Very Little Nightmares, Little Nightmares 2 and Little Nightmares 1. I'll link my video in the description where we talk about the timeline in its entirety. But anyway, so it's a very common assumption, or it's generally understood, that the girl we see in Very Little Nightmares is Six, and I think this is one, again, I agree with. We first encounter Six right after the Very Little Nightmares beginning, or it's like a tutorial you could say, and we see that she's watching us as she's climbing the pipes. Most of the time throughout Very Little Nightmares, Six seems to be fending for herself until the end of the game. So we know from our perspective that Six starts her journey in the nest, but one point I think a lot of people try to make and struggle to find is how and why she ends up in the nest, and wow, I think I actually have an idea. So from the game, we know the girl in the yellow raincoat arrived by accident in the nest, as we can see from her hot air balloon crashing into the roof of the nest. But by the time the girl in the yellow raincoat sees Six, she's already inside. As the girl in the yellow raincoat starts her journey, Six comes across a child climbing the vents. It's safe to assume that Six must have been hiding in the higher parts of the nest, and I assume this is to remove herself from danger. This could also explain why she seems to know the ins and outs of the areas in the nest, so she's surviving in the nest again, which is a very common theme for Six. You can even say it's very similar to how she was so successful at surviving on the moor, as we saw in the 2017 comics. I think one important thing to note here is that from what is shown on the walls in the nest, it's very apparent that the children are faced with two choices in the world of Little Nightmares. Either become a gnome, or remain yourself and try to survive. I think the drawing on the wall is a great indication of this, and alludes to how and why the children choose the locations they find themselves in. I think it's very apparent that the nest and the moor are very aware of each other, telling the children about each of the places. I think these places are used as a way to escape what's been going on in the world of Little Nightmares. Well, that's what they want you to think anyway. Again, I think it's all just a cover-up to lure you into each of these places. So, how did Six actually get there? Well, I think at some point Six opted for the choice to go to the nest to protect herself. Perhaps the balloon ride was a ticket out of the scary, dark, twisted place that was the world of Little Nightmares. She could go somewhere where children were safe and cared for. Perhaps the nest, while Six was hoping to be a safe haven, turned out to be her first interaction with how the world was so dangerous and how frightening it had become. Before coming to the nest, she was hopeful, but after some time, she became the Six that we know today. I think Six's journey hasn't been an easy one. I think it's been a journey of loss and hurt and betrayal. So, she's been so long without a friend. She's forgotten how to treat them. She forgets how to be a child again. She treats children more like a resource to help and aid her. I think we sometimes get a small glimpse of this in Little Nightmares 2, where Six plays with Mono in the school ground. We knew that Six learned about the moor from the nest, as we can see a book on the moor in the nursery room in Very Little Nightmares. Perhaps this is why Dark Six indicates to her that this is Six's next step. Perhaps Dark Six is no more than Six's anger and hate coming through. Deep inside, she wants to change the world of Little Nightmares and will stop at nothing to do so. She just needs to let that darkness out. I think this is what the Signal Tower did to her. It allowed her to express that twisted darkness, that hate. One other thing that I would actually like to point out is the ending of Very Little Nightmares. It's the common thought that the girl in the yellow raincoat never survived, but I would like to open your mind to the idea that she did. I say this because I think that when she fell into the water with the Pretender, she actually didn't vanish. She actually took off her coat. And I think she did this as a way to save herself from drowning, as the coat would add weight, unlike the Pretender, where she kept her dress on. And of course, the dress would absorb the water and then acts like some kind of anvil, pulling the Pretender deeper. But the girl in the yellow raincoat was smart enough to take her coat off, and thus this could have actually saved her. I think this is why the coat was open when it rose to the surface, and I believe she, the girl in the yellow raincoat, is the one who actually continued her journey to the Pale City, and I think she did this on her own, and this is why we find the yellow raincoat when we do in Little Nightmares 2. And it's also worth mentioning that perhaps Six actually followed the girl without the raincoat, and this is how she found herself trapped by the hunter. Maybe this is what led Six into the hunter's cabin. Maybe she followed the girl that she had helped in Very Little Nightmares, and this is what brought her to the hunter's cabin. But of course, Six got caught. Perhaps this is why Six marked down the days on the wall in the cabin. Perhaps it's how many days that her friend left her behind in there. And again, this brings it back to why she was so hesitant to accept Mono's help. And I think this ties up nicely because I don't personally fully agree with the timeline theory, and this gives an indication to where this hesitation comes from with Six. And also, we know that Mono was actually somewhat responsible for the cause of why Six was caught as well, because of course we see in the new comics that Six was took away by another child sat in a tree at the point she was captured. And thus, this brings us back to the girl in the yellow raincoat in Little Nightmares 2. This is why Six is so inclined to take it and to use it, because it's offered more than comfort. It offered Six closure. Perhaps Six wondered if one day she would meet the person who helped her escape the nest. Perhaps this is another indication of a very, very early version of Six, one that tried to help. Perhaps this was the moment it all changed for her. But I do think Six's origin story is quite an interesting topic. I would have loved to have had more indication for where Six came from and how she got into the position that she was in the nest. But for now, I'm happy with the theory that I have. But again, let me know what you think in the comments below about this theory. Let me know what you think and where you think Six came from. Because again, I really would be interested in hearing people's ideas on this. Because I think we're all going to have different ideas. And of course, if you love Little Nightmares, do all the usual. But I do have 2 more theory videos coming for Little Nightmares. And they are super interesting, especially the one in particular. But of course, with that being said, thank you so much for watching this video. Make sure you hit like, comment, subscribe, do all the usual stuff. Have a lovely morning, day or night wherever you are in the world. Stay safe, and I will see you all in the next Little Nightmares.